This thing is expensive, and I don't just mean the Switch 2 console, I mean everything around it in its ecosystem. Look, it's still ground zero. I'm still on the high. I watched the Direct today. No
A Legend
way!
of Zelda game.
I'm already losing my voice from how much I've been screaming and talking and being excited. And look, ultimately, I think it's all a net positive. Ultimately, it's the most exciting thing I've experienced in my natural born life, you know? And that has at least a couple of weeks to live in my heart until my son is born, and then I'm assuming that might take its place. But until then, there is like a dark cloud that hung over the whole event, and I noticed it while I was watching. Like, there were so many cool things happening, I was able to keep staying focused and ping off the high, but there were definitely multiple moments where I kind of had to just look in the camera and wince and wonder what I was hearing.
Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour will launch as a paid digital game on the same day as Nintendo Switch 2. So please check it out if you're interested.
Paid? I think really the first time my ears picked up in this whole event was that pack-in game. That's not actually a pack-in game. That was the first part that was a little strange. This game seems to be like you're just walking around a model of a Nintendo Switch 2 and you can hear some information about it and how the thing works, and great, you know? An instructional pamphlet, which, you know, instructional pamphlet's something you usually pick up for free on the way out of AAA after they inspect your car, you know? Just a little bit of information on what's going on. But if I was walking out of AAA and I got yelled at to pay $10 for it, I'd say, okay, you have it back. I don't need to learn. Pay?
Now, I'd like to share some more information regarding Nintendo.
What is, when I saw it, I was legitimately excited. Even though it wasn't anything super fun looking, just the idea of having a pack-in game again, like with the Wii. But no, they're charging for it. We don't know the price, but it's a paid app. So you would assume, I don't know, what, like $10? You would hope nothing more than that. But that was kind of the start of the gears turning on just a bunch of weird money things that came about in this event. The second other big one was Mario Kart World is $80. Now look, I want to talk about this stuff because it's an elephant in the room. As exciting as everything is, I don't want to breeze past this. I actually want to dive in and kind of break it down and tell you how I feel about it. So Mario Kart World being $80. I think we need to pump the brakes on this one just a little, because we see Donkey Kong, and I'm not justifying it, but let me give some hypotheses, because I'm not happy with 80 unless, there's a big unless. We've seen Donkey Kong's price is 70. That's a brand new game that looks as grand a scope as anything Nintendo does usually, like Mario Odyssey or Forgotten Land or these other games that are usually 60. And if the price jump now is expected to go up to 70, I mean, that's in line with the rest of the industry. Nintendo already tried it out with Tears of the Kingdom. I think a lot of us were expecting that. So seeing 70, okay. But why 80? My one working theory is I'm just really hoping this is the case. Let's not judge it too quickly, because what if they, with the $80, promise to give us 2, 3, 4 years or reoccurring support or a live service type thing where they're constantly adding new characters, new tracks, and all of that DLC is free. Everything they add to the game is free. Any improvements, any changes, any extra content, this whole world concept of something grander than normal. What if all of that is free? And in the end, we end up getting an immense amount of content, and it makes it worth it in a way. I think that is the only way, in my mind right now, I can see $80. Like, if we get this, and I'm not even talking about like skins or battle passes or anything like that. Like, those are free. Those are free off the rip, Nintendo. You know that. But if we get this and then later they offer DLC that's paid, I'm out. Like, I don't really know what could justify this in my mind. Otherwise, we're in a slippery slope here, and if Nintendo do this with no real good reason, it's really just opening up the floodgates for other game companies and developers across the board to do the same, and I really don't want that. So I understand everybody's hesitation. I just think we need to find out more about it, but if it ends up being just how it looks right now, that's not good. So that was the second thing. Then we had the enhanced editions of games. There was conversation leading up to this. What were they going to do with games like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom? Are they going to utilize this new hardware? And it seems like, yes, they are. And you got to pay for it. There is an additional add-on fee to upgrade to the enhanced version if you already have the base version, which tells me If you're buying it from scratch, it's probably going to cost more. It's going to be the base game plus whatever it costs to enhance it. They have this page up, free updates for select Switch games. So some are free. Super Mario Odyssey, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, ARMS, Super Mario 3D World. Now, I don't know what they mean by free updates, but it says improved playability. So in my mind, this means better frame rates, better visuals, 4K, 60, 120 frames, all of that. We have Scarlet and Violet down here, so we might finally see Scarlet and Violet get a free update. And good. There's no shot they can release those games as bad as they were and then charge you to fix them. That would be nuts. So that's free. Assuming that's free, we can hopefully make it look like Pokemon ZNA in the trailer. Really great frame rate. So why are they charging for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom and other games that are enhanced? Well, to me, it seems like all those games offered something extra. They were switched to enhanced with extra content on top of being better performing. I can't remember exactly offhand, but Breath of the Wild offered the weird app integration, GPS, I don't know what else it added, but Kirby added a whole extra level, Jamboree added a bunch of extra content, so paying for those enhances makes sense. And I think it makes even more sense that I can't really remember Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom's enhanced offhand. Those are actually included in Nintendo Switch Online. So if you're already paying for Nintendo Switch Online, you'll get Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom for free in that umbrella. That's another thing which is a little better, I guess. So if they're adding in actual content to the point where it's almost like DLC and it has a visual upgrade, it's called an enhanced and they charge you. If they're just going to boost the frame rates and visuals and leave the game pretty much untouched other than that, it's free and it's an update that you can get just by putting in the game. So I think that is a little better. You know, I don't think anyone's really complaining too much about these enhanced versions. I was hoping they would be all free, but I also didn't expect a lot of them to have extra content. So that does make sense to me. The other thing that is tripping people out is the price of the console, and then you add on the accessories. So the Switch 2 for $450 comes with 2 Joy-Cons, a grip, the straps, the dock, the Ultra Speed HDMI cable, and then the AC adapter. And then all of that is $450. The extra things you can get are like a Pro Controller, which is $80. And then you can get extra Joy-Cons. Obviously, you don't really need to if you get the pair that comes with it. You can get a Joy-Con 2 charging grip, which I guess you don't really need, but this is something that you can get, a charging grip. And then the camera. If you want to say like you want the Switch 2 experience on launch, I guess you don't really need any of this other than the camera. Like, it's the new gimmick, and I think a lot of people are going to be interested in picking this up. So let's say you want to get the bundle version with Mario Kart. You're at $500 plus tax in US. With the camera, you're at $550, which is almost double what the original Switch cost. You want to start adding in any extra games, you're getting pretty up there, close to $700, $800. And that's before you get a case or anything like that, a grip or whatever it is that you need. So clearly more expensive, which is already tripping a lot of people up. To justify this, I guess, I kind of figured this console would cost $400. I always figured it would cost more than the original Switch because it's supposed to be a big upgrade, bigger and better, right? So it can't be the same price. That just doesn't really compute. People are going to look at it and be like, oh, it's the same price. Oh, actually, it's cheaper than the Switch one. So is it worse? You know, it has to be more expensive. I figured $400. They went with $450 for like the base. And I think that's a good price considering what they're offering. We're getting 4K, 120 frames, 1080p screen, HDR, quality build, magnetic Joy-Cons. You know the thing's going to feel like a quality product when you get it. And the internals are clearly there because it can play games like Cyberpunk and Final Fantasy VII Remake. I know handheld PCs I've tried have struggled to run Cyberpunk, and this console's shipping with it. Oh, and Elden Ring. So clearly they've utilized that money, and like the Steam Deck is about the same price, and this seems like it can do what the Steam Deck can do, plus all its wacky gimmicks, plus it has the good games, you know? So the price I'm okay with. I think $50 for a camera, probably about as cheap as they could make a you know what I'm trying to say. What I do like about this, before you get too ahead of yourself, is apparently you can plug in almost any USB webcam. So if you just want to use like a Logitech webcam, you don't actually have to buy the Nintendo Switch one. Now that actually counteracts this whole Nintendo are being really weird about money thing, because they didn't have to do that. They didn't really have to allow any plug-in webcam to work, but apparently it can, and you can just not buy Nintendo's one. Or you can buy Nintendo's one. It comes on a nice stand. It will probably sit perfectly where you need it to sit, and it's probably more convenient. But sure, once you add up a lot of this stuff, the new game prices, the console prices, the accessories, it's adding up. I mean, new consoles always add up. Wait a second, I just realized something, and I realized it because I was watching Scootish's stream, and he said it, and it made me think about it. The C button is for the chat app, but the chat app costs money. It's free initially. If you press the button and you can get into a chat with friends, it's free initially until like March next year. But then after that, you have to pay. The Nintendo Switch Online, you have to pay to use the game chat, which means the C button won't work. You'll have a whole button on your controller that won't work unless you pay. Wait a second, that one, I'm filming this after I made the whole video. I've already ended the video. That one's kind of intense. I don't know how I feel about that. I can't think of another time there's been a physical button on a controller or a console that if you pressed it, it just straight up wouldn't work if you didn't pay. That's a lot. That's a lot to take in. And as Wolfden, my friend Bob, said in Scoot's chat just now, so the C actually means credit card. Who would have known that when you press the C button, it stands for credit card? This should be baked in. This should be part of it, right? I feel like if this is the new gimmick, if the whole like wacky camera and watching what your friends are playing and streaming, if this is like the whole new big gimmick on the software side and you're charging us for that, I actually can't even remember the Nintendo ever charging us for a gimmick. Look, everything else after this I filmed before. That's kind of crazy. Finally, a lot of people have pointed out or said that the physical for Mario Kart World is $90, and I think that is just straight up misinformation. There was a European site that listed it as $90, but as far as anyone can actually tell, there's no, at least in America, there's no retailer that's listed Mario Kart World for $90, and I have no real reason to believe or think that the physical would be $10 more than the base. Let's summarize my opinions here, and then I would love to hear yours. $400 for the Switch 2 would have been an incredible steal price. But even still, $450, while it is reaching out there and is gonna seem pretty high for Nintendo consumers that are used to cheaper consoles and prices, I think what they're offering and for that base console experience is worth the price. Before we start talking about anything else in games, I still think the $450 is justifiable. Mario Kart World being $80 is insane unless they can justify it and it's a one-off. There needs to be something about this game that they've got planned to explain to us about why it's $80, like extra DLC. The pack-in game thing, that's not a pack-in game, just make that free. I don't know what you're doing. I hope it's at least free for Nintendo Switch Online subscribers. I actually am thinking of that now. I haven't read into that. That better be the case. I don't know why anyone would pay for this. Enhanced editions costing more makes sense if they're adding in DLC and extra content, and I like that there are some games that are getting free updates. And then all the accessories are being expensive. Accessories are always expensive. They all seem par for the course for me. You just gotta pick and choose the ones you want, and when it comes to getting grips and cases, maybe wait a few days. I do think, though, regardless of how much I sit here and try and explain my opinion on it and how I feel about it and whether or not some of it is justified, the reality is it's all more expensive. And I think that that's going to have a visual reaction, an immediate reaction to consumers and how this console will sell. I think it would have sold a lot better if they could have kept it at $400, and I can't believe there's a $500 bundle. I mean, even though it's a bundle and it adds a game, it's making me think there's a $500 Switch version, and that just seems insane. So I think perception is going to be key here, and I hope people perceive it the right way, but I think it's going to sour a lot of people, and hopefully once this thing releases and everyone sees how good it is, hopefully, and that it's worth it, that perception will change, but this is definitely a hurdle that Nintendo are going to have to get over. Seeming as like I'm some weird spokesperson for Nintendo when I don't even work for Nintendo, and we're about to spend 2 years with this thing. I wanted to give my thoughts on this and clarify my opinion on it, but I'd love to know yours. I think I've talked way too much today. I'm losing my voice. I just really wanted to get these thoughts out there, and I'd love to know yours. Like, comment, subscribe. I've been up since 6 a.m. It's 4 p.m. right now. All I've been doing is filming videos and editing. See you in the next video in 10 minutes.